Hi, I'm Jeanette. I'm a part-time knitwear designer, and welcome to my very first entry of my knitwear designer diaries. And for this series, it's basically a knitting podcast. I'm going to be chatting about any finished works I've had recently, any finished objects, FOs. I'll also be chatting through my current works in progress or WIPs. If I have any fun acquisitions, I'll chat about those too. I'll be sure to share announcements when it comes to new wave knitting related things or just cool things in the knitting community. I'll also be just sharing some life updates because I kind of want this to be a space to yap and just check in, and I want it to be casual, sit down, chat with a friend about some knitting. And as a designer who has a full-time job, I'll be chatting through some of the challenges and wins that come with trying to make my knitwear design business full time, but also chatting through like the design process that I'm going through with the stuff I'm working on, and just giving you some behind the scenes, just chatting. This is just our casual monthly chat to talk about all things knitting. I know I'm kind of just starting my YouTube journey, but I know some of you might know me, and if you know me, then you know I just got a haircut. And I'm still kind of figuring it out. It's a little shorter than I anticipated, but I am naturally a short hair girl, so we are working on it. I'm kind of not loving this little flip here, but we're gonna just roll with it. So to start out these diary entries, as we are calling them, I wanted to actually start them out as I start out my journal entry. So I don't journal very regularly. I wish I did. I will do a lot of start and stop where I'll do it for a period and then I don't. But when I do attempt to journal, I really like to start out with just like the date, time, three things I'm grateful for, and a rating of the day so far on a scale from 0 to 10. And I invite you to do the same in the comments. So for me today, it is Wednesday, February 18th. It is 11:20 in the morning. It is a gloomy, rainy day out here today, but I'm grateful for the snow to be melting. So I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, which is like 5 miles outside of DC, and we had some snow sticking around for about a month or so, a little less, but I hate snow, and I am so, so grateful it is almost completely melted. And on the same note, I'm also grateful that the weather is just warming up because I am so excited for spring. I am also grateful for having this time to chat with you. In fact, this is my third time attempting to record this because the first two, I think I was just getting too in my head about making it really polished and like something more strategic than it needs to be. So I'm grateful to have the time and the time to do it again. Although I don't really have the time to do it again, but I do. We can make the time, right? We make our own lives. But more so, I'm also just like on the same note, I'm grateful that I kind of had the intuition that the other times I tried recording this, it just didn't sit right. It just didn't feel authentic. So I am grateful for that internal understanding and trust with myself to know, like, we're almost there. Let's do it again. And here we are. And I'll say for the last thing I am grateful for today is to be part of such an amazing, supportive, curious, and creative community. I mean, the reason why I love my knitwear design business, a huge part of my business, is really trying to foster community. And today I'm feeling it just a little bit extra because the Turn to Wardrobe Summit is happening right now. It's a free summit. By the time this goes live, it's already going to be over with. But during this free summit, I am speaking on how to gauge swatch for socks. I'm also doing a panel discussion on how to substitute yarns. And both of those things I'm just like, I love talking about. I could talk about for ages. So it's really cool that I got invited to speak for this summit on that, and that I hope people are able to learn from me during the summit as well. So please let me know what's the date? What's the time that you're watching this in the comments? Tell me three things you're grateful for and rate your day on a scale from 0 to 10, which I have not yet done. So I will give it my first thought. I like to go with the first thought. My first thought was 7. And the reason why I'm giving it a 7 is just because things are going pretty good. I had a great night's sleep, actually. I got 2 hours of deep sleep. I got 8 hours and 15 minutes total of sleep. And so I'm feeling quite rested, although quite tired at the same time. But definitely more rested than I have been lately. There's just been a lot going on in life, which I will share as we continue to chat. So I'm just been feeling a little burnt out lately, but overall, everything that's going on is a very positive thing. So I can't complain too much. And I had to take my dog to the vet this morning, and that went very smooth. So, say overall, the day is a solid 7. I'm only docking points for being a little tired and a little burnt out, but yeah, so there we go. So let me know where you're at in the comments. And also, I wanted to welcome you to the New Wave Knitting Circle. So I don't know if you realize this, but actually you have just sat down in the New Wave Knitting Circle. Welcome. Introduce yourself in the comments. Let's make some friends. These are our knitting group members. So welcome. We're so excited to have you here. So for announcements, I want to start off these videos with any sort of like top of the moment announcements going on. And I do have one, and that is that I am hosting a group knitting trip to Ireland in May this year with Kylan from Yarn Over Everything. She's an awesome designer and tech editor, and actually I use her to tech edit my patterns. We decided to host this group knitting trip to Ireland. We announced it last May, and when we announced it, and like opened the doors for it, it sold out in a second. Like it literally sold out in a day. We have, I think, 16 seats total, and it sold out. However, life happens. You know, some people had to drop out because of finances or things coming up, life things, right? So right now, as I am talking to you, we have 3 seats open for this knitting trip. And it is quite a turnaround, right? Because May is coming up fast. And the last day to book, I believe that's available is March 21st or 22nd. So if you want to join us, if you have any sort of inkling of like, I need to be a part of this group, I'm gonna have such FOMO if I don't go, I'll regret it if I don't go, then I really invite you to join us. We would love to have you there. It's gonna be a wonderful trip. And we have a full itinerary. So we start out in Dublin. We're going to be checking out a local yarn store. We're kind of coordinating to see if even the people from the yarn store can give us a little talk about like Irish knitting. So that would be really cool. But we're also doing things like an Irish whiskey tasting. I believe we're going to the Guinness Storehouse. We're going to check out a castle. We're going to Killarney. And I'm also working right now on figuring out how to maybe get into a yarn mill and do a yarn mill tour. Or there's also another event that I'm kind of thinking maybe we can add to the itinerary of going and checking out a sheepdog demonstration, because during May when we're there, there's going to be so many sheep and baby sheep frolicking in the fields. And so I kind of just want to be in the fields frolicking with the sheep as much as possible. So trying to do all of that. And we also have a group Discord going for those who do sign up to kind of like make friends before we go. So we're not all strangers when we arrive. And we're doing like a little knit along before the trip as well. So we all have kind of like a little matching thing when we're there, which will be really cute. So it's going to be like a really good time. And it's definitely going to be a trip that I'm going to remember forever, no doubt. I can't wait to connect and make friends on this trip. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, I got a link down in the description below, and I would love to have you join us. So that's our announcements for today. Next, let's move into discussing our FOs. So FOs, I know some people don't know maybe what that is. That's finished objects. So those are going to be my finished projects as of late. And honestly, I don't have too many of those. I will share 2 that I have finished recently, and they kind of go hand in hand with my whips that I'm also working on. So actually, you know what? Let me think. I'm going to start out actually with my most recent FO. How about that? This is the right side in sweater in all her glory. So this is a sweater I'm currently designing right now. This one was knit in Sierra Yarns Andean Spirit with the light blue and white. And I love how this yarn just legitimately looks like a blue sky dotted with clouds. It is also, it just feels like a cloud. It is a very, very soft yarn. It is a blown yarn with like a nylon netting with alpaca fibers blown. Alpaca is an extremely warm natural fiber, so it's very lightweight, but at the same time, very warm. And this design I've actually been working on for over a year. And it has just been kind of a start and stop process for me. So, one thing I'm working on right now is making a more fluid design process, which I'll get to in a minute with my current design that I'm really working on writing right now. But this one is actually, I knit this sample a little while ago, but I recently went back because I had knit it too short, it was too cropped, and the sleeves were too long. So I went back and frogged the ribbing initially and took some length off the sleeves and also added some length to the body. And you know what? Let me actually just try it on for you while we're here. I'll show you what we're working with. I'll also know I have not blocked it since I have done that work. So the bottom's kind of like you can kind of tell it's just kind of a little bit coming in a bit. It's not laying that flat. And I'll show you another sample and you'll be like, oh yeah, I see how it's supposed to kind of be laying. But I just kind of want to try this on for you to show you what it's like. And the thing with this pattern too that I actually really love well, of course. Well, let me just show you. Okay, so here she is. If I were to block it, it should have a little bit more of a positive ease and hang to it. But overall, I think she's quite cute. I don't personally love this color on me, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might end up actually giving this sweater as a gift. That's typically what I do when I don't end up wearing the knits that I make myself. But I did work with the yarn company Sierra Yarns for this pattern. So I got this yarn gifted to me. And I also have a coupon code if you want to check it out. I'll put it in the description below. I think you get 20% off with my coupon. And I think it's New Wave Knitting, but let me double check. Um, but yeah, so this pattern's cool because you actually knit it inside out. So I call it the right side in sweater because when you're knitting and you're knitting the right side, which is the stockinette side of things, let me take it back off so I can show you. Um, but yeah, so you're knitting the right side, right? So it's all in stockinette, so you don't have to worry about like actually knitting all the purls for these purl bumps and the reverse stockinette final result. You actually just knit it in stockinette, so it's just very easy TV knitting. You'll see the seams are kind of funky here on the right side. And when you are done, you turn the right side in, hence the name. So the end result is this yummy reverse stockinette texture. And a couple of design elements I'm especially proud of is that you'll see that the ribbing throughout is 2x2 ribbing, and I've made it really flow into some exposed seams. So the raglan seams here just naturally flow in to the 2x2 of the collar. And then there's a couple other exposed seams that go down along the sides of the body that also flow in to the ribbing on the bottom. And then down the underside of the sleeves, there's another exposed seam that flows into the sleeve ribbing. And this design, again, has been a bit of a headache for me, unfortunately, because of that start and stop process I mentioned. So I initially started designing it again like over a year ago. And actually, the reason why it was start and stop for this one was because I've actually knit the sweater like 4 times. The first 2 times my gauge swatch lied to me. And it ended up knitting a sweater that was just smaller than I wanted the fit to be. In fact, this one itself was one of those, and it's a little bit tighter than I would want it to be. This is my favorite sample, and it's the most accurate sample for what the final design should be. And it's knit in the same yarn, but with a dark gray that I really like. It's just a good staple color. And you'll see this one just fits, it just flows a bit better, right? It doesn't hug me as much, which I'm hoping when I block the other one, it will also kind of fit a bit more like this one. But also, I didn't mention, but the positive ease for this should be about 5 to 6 inches. And the sleeves are knit just straight down. Also, in case you aren't familiar with my designs, all of them are made to measure, but they also allow you to use any yarn and any gauge. Plus, they are all wrapped up in an interactive PDF. So all you have to do is plug in your measurements, plug in your gauge with your yarn. All of the math is automatically calculated for you throughout the pattern. So all of your stitch counts, all of your rows show up exactly where you need them to be within the pattern itself. It's super cool. And I love being able to give others that creative freedom because I hate feeling kind of boxed in by gauge. So with this pattern, I recommend using either a DK, worsted, or bulky weight yarn. With all of my patterns, I usually give a recommendation for the size of the yarn. And so this one is DK, worsted, or bulky. I used a worsted weight. But yeah, the first two just did not turn out. The first two had gauge swatches that lied and turned out too small. So that's kind of why I was just getting frustrated with it. I put it down when I think my second sample was just not working out and picked it up later. And at that time, basically, I lost the plot with the math and I just made a few errors that I didn't realize I didn't account for. So we've been in the testing process for this pattern since November. And we ran into some significant issues during the testing process. There was just a couple of math errors. One was significant that caused a large bump in the road, and that was the fact that I forgot to, when it came to the stitch counts for the sleeves, oh, I forgot to mention, because it's made to measure, the made to measure components for this one is that you get to choose your bust size. Like you input your bust, but you also input your arm circumference. So the sleeves are actually increased independently from the body. It doesn't naturally, like if you're increasing for the body, you don't necessarily always increase for the sleeve. And that creates just a more tailored custom fit for the end result for the sleeves. And for the stitch count, for the sleeves, before you separate them, I had forgot to subtract the amount of stitches you have in the underarm that you cast on later. So those were accounted for in this sleeve stitch count before you separate, and then you added them again when you cast on the underarm stitches. So it resulted in people having too many stitches for their sleeves, which caused a number of people to have to frog the whole sweater. I felt so bad. Test knitting is always like I've gotten a lot better with it, but it can be quite stressful because I'm a perfectionist, and I've talked about this in a previous video, but my favorite way to describe what perfectionism is that it's not, I like everything to be perfect, la di da. It is feeling it's trying to avoid feeling shame or failure. And when I make a mistake like that and I've caused people to waste time and effort, it really makes me feel bad. It's like I almost want to just throw in the towel and be like, forget it. We'll just start this over. I'm so sorry. But we stuck through it and people frogged and reknit, and the end result seems to be a very overwhelmingly positive one for all sizes and all yarn weights. So another thing when it comes to my test knitting process is that I make sure to get a wide range of sizes for testers, as every designer should for their test knits. But because mine are made to measure, I'm like basically try to get a test knitter for every different inch measurement of a bust. So I really like am very thorough. I try to get a lot of testers. But on top of that, I also like to have a mix of skill levels, of course, so that way I know how approachable it is for beginners, or if an ambitious beginner, which is what I would rank this pattern for ambitious beginners to intermediate. I really want it to be like if an ambitious beginner wants to do it, I want them to be able to do it. So my patterns are very thorough. And basically, I just want to get test knitters who have a variety of skill levels. It's a fine line to be thorough with my patterns, but also too thorough, right? Like if someone who is a more advanced beginner or advanced knitter is knitting it, I don't want them to become confused with over explanations, right? That's another thing that can cause confusion. Overall, I don't want to have too much explanation where it becomes confusing. So having a variety of skill levels in the test knitters is very helpful. And then lastly, I also make sure there's a mix of yarns being used, both in yarn weight and also ideally in yarn fiber. So you can really get an idea, I can get an idea of how the design behaves with all of those different elements being introduced to it. So I can feel confident that anyone can take this pattern and run with it and make it their own. The test knitting is just wrapping up. There's a few people who have yet to submit their final feedback form. So I just pinged them on Monday. And so I'm just waiting for their final feedback. Once I have it, next steps are to apply all the remaining edits. I like to do revisions as we go through with the pattern. So I think most of the edits have already been made. There's like a couple of math things I want to just double check and make sure are working. Um, and then give it another run through and send it off to Kylan, my tech editor. And once she sends it back to me, I sent it to Hunter from May Crochets, and she's the one who actually makes the pattern interactive for me. So once all of those steps are complete, which should be about 2 weeks, then I am going to be hopefully releasing the pattern. My goal is actually a little ambitious to try to release it before March. So I'm still kind of in the February time zone. I think that that would result in a better launch for the pattern because we are getting close to spring, but I just want to get this pattern out into the world. I do not want to keep holding this and being responsible for this design in terms of having it on my plate to finish. I just want it out. So even if we do get into the March territory, I think I will still release it because I just don't want to hang on to it anymore. So it has been a bumpy road, but this kind of leads nicely into my next project that we're going to chat about, which is the Staple Cardigan. So I do have a couple of samples for the Staple Cardigan. One has been finished and one is on my needles. So I'll show you the finished one first. So here she is. Actually, she has not been blocked yet, and I still have to sew on one final button, which I've been meaning to do for weeks now. Please don't judge. And but this is what she's looking like. I'm absolutely in love. Let me put her on. And again, mind you, hasn't been blocked. But I went with some wider straight sleeves for this sample. And I absolutely love the buttons. I'm imagining wearing this buttoned up more than wearing it not buttoned up, but we'll see how I like it after it's blocked and also the depends on the outfit, right? But I'll tell you, this yarn that I used for it was sitting in my stash for so long. So final fit pre-block. It's gonna be like the perfect oversized fit, I think, once it's blocked. Um, but yeah, this purple yarn that I used for it has been sitting in my stash for years. It is a DK yarn from Woolen Works, and it's in I think just a one-off colorway called Blurple. And it's like a perfect blue purple. So sometimes it looks more blue, sometimes it looks more purple. And I love the color. I've always loved a periwinkle. But I realized it was sitting in my stash because I was like, you know what? It's just felt too loud for me to wear on its own. Like, I just knew that if I were to knit it on its own, I wouldn't pick it up as often as I wanted to. Just if I was to look at my wardrobe as a whole, I'm going to be filming another video here soon in the next couple of weeks on how I'm like intentionally building my hand knit wardrobe and things that I do to make sure that I actually wear the knits that I make. And so I just knew I wasn't going to pick it up on its own. But I paired it with one strand of alpaca suri silk, I think from Drops, and it just transformed it just enough to like soften it up a little bit in terms of on the eyes and the color of it. Kind of gives it more of a tweedy look, right? And also just really transformed the fabric. So it is so, so heavenly soft. I love it. And I got these buttons. They are, I believe, a natural ash button from, actually, I found another one. Where's my, I need to find my last button that I have to sew on. It's in my, where is it? Oh God. Oh God. I hope I can find that last button. But it's from Holland Hoof Farm Store. I've got the little card from how, like, I got it from them. And they have the best buttons. I recently found them from a recommendation from Polly from the Very Pink Knits podcast. Highly recommend that podcast for any person who knits because they basically just answer questions. And I have learned so much from that podcast, just as a little note there. But I also found out about these buttons from them. And so they make awesome wood and ceramic buttons. So these, I believe, are the natural ash buttons. They're like an inch wide. And they just, I think, make this whole thing come together. Now, for this pattern, I already have a staple sweater pattern out. And again, it lets you use any yarn, any gauge, made to measure, does the math for you. And that's the sweater I was wearing previously. I held a knit along for this sweater last fall slash winter, and it went really well. It's one of my top selling patterns, so it was just like really exciting to see and to work through that knit along with about 150 people who signed up for it. And I got some feedback at the end that most people were very, very happy with their sweaters, but I did get some feedback from a couple, and it gave me some basically that they just didn't love the fit. And there was a few things that I was thinking as I was knitting a sweater, because I knit not this one, but a different staple sweater as I was doing the knit along. And I realized as I was doing it, I was like, because I've learned a lot since I put that pattern out. And I was like, there's just some things I really want to tweak. Like, there's just some things I'm not happy with. And anyway, I did this sample before that, right? So this is very close to the staple sweater pattern itself. Let me just lower it a little bit so you can just kind of see the full body. But yeah, it's very similar to the actual staple sweater pattern. But I want to change some things. I'll also note that this is my first time for the button band. I did a double knit button band. It was my very first time doing a double knit button band. And I used Starcross Knits tutorial on Instagram for it. And if you have never knit a button band before, a double knit button band, sorry, highly, highly recommend that you check out that tutorial. I'll link it down below. The only thing I really used to knit this double knit button band, and it turned out really well. However, there was one part that I kind of ignored. And that was that she had said that she used a double knit button band in a pattern of hers, and the test knitters found that it's best to do a gauge swatch of just the double knit and see how it aligns row gauge wise with your stockinette gauge or whatever the pattern, the rest of the pattern gauge is. And I did not do that. I was like, you know what? We'll just wing it. We'll see what happens. I and you'll notice I think it's kind of like a little bit wavy. You can kind of see it from the side here. And I think it's like that because I skipped that step. However, I think after blocking, it will kind of calm it down a little bit. So that's this sample, which I love. I love, love, love. I need to finish it, and I'm praying I can find the other button that I have left to sew on. So, any luck on that. I just like dove into my little drawer over here and I can't find it, so we'll see. Um, but I am working on the second sample right now. And this has also been a little bit of, and this is I'm really loving how it's coming along. I've already frogged it completely once. Basically, I was already at the part where I'm at now, where I had the body knit and one sleeve done. And I realized that the sleeves were just fitting a little too tightly. So I frogged the whole thing, but I'm already back at this stage. It only took me about 2 weeks to get here, I think, which is pretty crazy. I'm just feeling like I'm just so excited about this design. And what I have left to do for this is obviously to finish the sleeve, add a button band, and then do the folded collar. And so to create this kind of like tweedy looking fabric. I am using one strand of heavy merino from Knitting for Olive in the colorway Wheat, and one strand of their super silk mohair in Dusty Sea Green, I believe it is. And together they just create this like super, super yummy. I kind of hate using the word yummy for this, but it's very yummy. Fabric that I just could live in forever. When picking yarn for this sweater, I actually was inspired by a sweater my fiance has that is like a J. Crew cotton sweater that he bought about a year ago, I want to say. And it's literally like a white base color with a little bit of a thinner green yarn that's very similar to this. And when he first bought it, I was wearing that and stealing it all the time. The thing is, though, over time, as fast fashion tends to do, the sweater has just gotten really pilly. It just hasn't held up well. I don't think it's 100% cotton. And yeah, so I've been wearing it less, but I've been really missing it. And I just know that I would wear a sweater in that color all the time if I could. So I decided to go with this yarn combo for this one. And I'm really happy with it. Um, so the design differences, though, that I'm making in the second sample, I am very excited about. So in the original staple sweater pattern, the collar and the cast on stitch count was an average of your head circumference and your neck circumference. And as a result, that often leads to a kind of tight neckline. I have found out that I've just learned that I have a preference for having it a little looser. And actually, during the staple sweater knit along, I decided, like, for my sweater, I was like, you know what, I'm going to add 2 inches to both of those measurements just to make it a little bit of a looser neckline. And I'm glad that I did that. And so I wanted to walk into this one creating a little bit of a wider neckline. And also, I'll share that I plan on updating the staple sweater pattern with basically the same updates I'm doing to this design as well. So that's to come later this year. So all of the things that I'm chatting about that's different from the staple sweater for this pattern is going to be applied to the staple sweater later on. But I just really want to focus on getting this new pattern out. So the neckline is actually now dependent on your back neck measurement. And I'll give you kind of guidance on like how to measure a sweater you already love to get that measurement. So that way it just kind of creates a more just you kind of have more control over that final neck measurement. Another thing that's going to be different with this one, and obviously I'm going to update the staple sweater pattern with, is allowing you to choose just the finished bust measurement. So in the staple sweater, it already has ease kind of calculated within the math, and it should give you about 5 to 6 inches of ease. But if you have a larger bust size, it kind of leans towards more bust ease, with the idea that should look the same almost on everybody, right? Because 1 inch of positive ease looks different on a 32-inch person rather than on a 60-inch bust person. So that was the thought process with doing percentage-based ease. However, I have since learned, especially I've learned it in the Knitwear Design Mastery course, that when it comes to designing patterns, obviously everything's going to look different on different bodies no matter what. But the goal of the designer is to ensure that the fit should be the same across all body sizes. And that's where percentage-based ease can be a little messy because that doesn't result in the same ease for every body. So with this one, I'm going to allow people in the math, you'll put in what you want the finished bust measurement to be. So it would be your actual bust plus the positive ease that you want to add to your sweater. I'm so excited for that update and that change for this pattern. Same goes for the sleeves. So there's going to be a few options, I think, with the sleeves. I might take one of these options out because I again dance a fine line between giving too many options for things and also keeping it like it's a pattern. If you want to add different design elements, maybe that could be a different pattern. But for what I'm calling my staple collection, which are very like basic knits. I kind of like to add in lots of options for customizing so that way you can just use the same pattern again and again to have wildly different customized sweaters or garments as a result. So for the sleeves, there will be, I think, a few different options. The first one will be like the default option, and that will allow you to increase the sleeves at the same rate as the body. And that's really nice, obviously, for beginners because you're just increasing, it's just much more of a simple process. Um, but that can create a little of too wide of a sleeve opening for some. So what I'm going to do in the pattern is have like some transparency of like, okay, if you do the default option, your sleeve opening will be X number of inches or centimeters. And if, say, you are looking at what it should be with the default option and you're like, that's too big, I don't want my sleeve that big, then you can go into the custom fit options for the sleeve. And for that, you can choose what you want your sleeve opening to be for the sleeve width at the opening. And then with that, kind of what I was saying with the right side in sweater, you would increase the sleeves independently from the body. So you might not increase them at the same time on each row, but that will create a more custom fit and a custom sleeve opening measurement. And then there's two more little customizations you can do where you can either knit the sleeve straight down, so that would result in a bit more of a wide sleeve, kind of what you saw, basically what you saw with the first sample. So for this one, I did basically what I just described, the default sleeve option where I increased it at the same rate as the body, and then I just knit the sleeve straight down for this wide sleeve effect. With this sample, I did a custom fit sleeve. I think that the first time I knit it, actually before I frogged, I did the custom fit, and then I decided I wanted to make the sleeve opening wider, which is why I frogged it. And I realized that it was actually super close when I upped the measurement for the sleeve opening. It basically ended up matching what the default sleeve would end up being, if that makes sense. So I decided to do just the default option. So every time I increase both for the body and the sleeve. But I decided to do the decrease sleeve option to test that out. So that's why it's kind of a bit more of a tapered, fitted result here. So for the sleeves, there will be, I guess, four different ways you can knit them in a sense, because you'll have the option to either do the default or the custom fit, and then you'll have the option to do either a wide straight sleeve or a more fitted decreased sleeve. So I'm really hyped on that. And then the other design decision I have to make is the button band, basically. So for the button band, obviously with this first sample, I did the double knit button band. And when I was initially coming up with the sample and what I had in mind when starting this pattern was I was thinking I would give an option for both the double knit button band or just like a classic ribbed button band that you pick up the sleeves, sorry, that you pick up the body stitches and then kind of knit the ribbing outward like this. And I'm still debating between adding both. I'm almost leaning towards just having the one button band option that is knit out like this, not the double knit, because I think that will be a little bit more approachable for those who are doing a button band for the first time. And if anyone wants to customize it and do a double knit, they can just do that if they want. But I think because there's already so many other customizations and things within the pattern, that maybe having just one option would be better. But let me know in the comments if you have opinions on this. But I'm leaning towards one option. So maybe if you think I should have both, convince me. Okay. So I'm imagining doing for this one, I'm going to do the pickup along the side and do a 1x1 ribbing outward. And then I'm going to be picking up the collar stitches and doing a folded 1x1 ribbed collar as well. And for the buttons for this one, I'm imagining going back to Hall and Hoof. And I was thinking a dark walnut. They have a couple of different options, and I'm like debating whether I should do more classic, kind of like the same style as what I did for the first sample, but in a very dark, like a very dark brown walnut color and wood, or also dark walnut, but they also have these buttons that look like wooden flowers that are so pretty. I'm debating which one to do, I'll also see what they have in stock. But overall, I'm feeling really, really optimistic about this pattern. And I'm also so excited to update the staple sweater pattern with those kinds of changes as well. However, I have not been able to really work on this cardigan too much over the past couple of weeks because I have been working on my Melt the Ice hat. So in case you missed it, which I'd be surprised if you did because it was everywhere, and still kind of popping up everywhere. But the Melt the Ice Hat pattern, this is where I'm at with mine, so I'm holding it up. But this pattern is designed by Paul Neary, also known as Yarn Cult. He's a Minnesota-based designer. And it's designed in the style of 1940s Norwegian hats that were worn as a symbol of resistance against Nazi occupation in their country. And after everything that happened in and is happening in Minnesota and with ICE across the United States, he put out this pattern. All the proceeds from the pattern go towards immigrant aid agencies in Minnesota. So I believe last I knew, which was like a week ago, um, it had raised over $400,000, which is absolutely amazing. And when it was first getting talked about a few weeks back, end of January, it was right after the shooting of Alex Preddy. And I personally was like seeing this pattern, people were sharing it with me, and I had plans to chat that week about how I'm building my hand knit wardrobe this year and like being intentional with some choices. But literally, I was like, I just felt like it was going to be incredibly tone deaf for me to go on with business as usual that way. And I really wanted to do something to help and to maybe raise some more awareness or to encourage other people to buy this hat and make it and wear it and take further action beyond just making the hat. So I reached out to Paul and asked if it'd be cool if I hosted a make along for the Melt the Ice hat pattern. And he was super excited about it because he's all about like, hey, if we can get more people to buy the pattern, raise more money, wear it as that symbol of resistance, that's great. More the merrier. So I decided to go forward and host the make along. And we are in the second and final week of it right now. So my goal for and I'll also say that it so many people signed up. I was so excited and touched, and I don't know, just like blown away. We had over 5,000 people sign up for the make along, and with the make along, there is a private Discord channel that is within my New Wave Knitting Circle Discord server. Link below if you want to join. Before the make along, I had like 200 people in the Discord, and now there's just over 2,000. So it was been quite a whirlwind. I have to say, we now have moderators for the Discord, so we're very official and organized, and it's just a good place to go in and hang out. And if you're interested in making the Melt the Ice hat or just connecting with others who share similar values as you and share community resources, like the Discord channel for the Make Along is going to stay open as long as people are using it. So feel free to hop into the Discord and join the Melt the Ice Hat channel so you can hop in there and make your hat, share your hat with others. But here's mine so far. So I am using a Noro yarn. I forget which one it is. I think I could just be making this up, but I think it's called Melvina. I'll double check that. And it's actually my first time working with Noro. And it's funny because I just really needed some red yarn, obviously, for this hat. And I went to my local yarn store and I go in and it's like a week after everything has started to pop off for this hat. And there is like no red yarn in my yarn store. And I was talking to the person who was checking me out, and she was like, yeah, between Christmas and this hat, there's like no red yarn anywhere. And I was just blown away by that. I thought that was really cool. The only red yarn left was the most expensive red yarn, and there was only a couple of skeins of this, and then like a couple skeins of, or a couple balls of this, I should say, and then a couple skeins of Malabrigo, I believe. Um, and I decided to go with the Noro. And I think it's in colorway Scarlet. And it's a single ply yarn that is just like a really durable, like sticky wool that I actually really love. I typically avoid using single ply yarns because I was definitely a part of the crazy sexy wool, craze from Wool and the Gang when that first popped off in 2020. That was really when I first started to expand my knitting skills a bit more. I've been knitting since I was 10, but at that time I was like just starting to really dive into moving beyond like basic hats and squares. And I quickly learned that I do not like single ply yarns, especially that kind of single ply yarn, because they can just pill so, so quickly. However, I am making this obviously for a hat, which shouldn't get that much friction, so it shouldn't pill too much. And because it is a thinner yarn, it's worsted technically, but definitely not the super bulky yarn that the crazy sexy wool is. So that means it has less surface area to rub and catch and pill. So I feel pretty optimistic. Not to mention, again, it is kind of like it feels really sticky. It feels like it's spun more tightly than, say, crazy sexy wool. So I'm just like really enjoying working with it. It's like actually a little treat. And I was like, okay, I guess I gotta treat myself to some Noro when I only saw this and like the other expensive yarn left. So definitely a treat, but I am enjoying the process. I'll also add a link down below to Instagram post from Knit One Chicago, and she shared some modifications that she made to the pattern, and I'm kind of following some of her guidance for the modifications. So for the actual hat pattern, it calls for 6 inches of ribbing, and I did an additional inch for 7 total inches. And then I also knit 1 inch in stockinette, and now I'm going to start decreasing. The pattern calls for you to start decreasing like right after the ribbing, but her modifications recommend doing a 1 inch or so of just stockinette, no decreasing. So that's what I did. And now the pattern also calls for like, it's kind of a different type of decrease pattern, but I think what it is, I haven't even really looked too closely at the decrease instructions yet, to be honest. But because for this make along, I'll also just clarify, it's a very low key, work at your own pace kind of make along. I did share out like video resources to walk you through like each step of the pattern, not my own videos, mainly very pink knits videos. But so like there is some guidance with the make along, but I am not like walking you through how to make it, especially because there's more than one version of the hat. So there's the knit version, and then there's also a crochet version and even a Tunisian crochet version. So rather than me giving like, I don't even know how to Tunisian crochet. I'm a very beginner crocheter. So rather than just being like giving just specific knitting instructions, I wanted to kind of give people resources so they can just work at their own pace and follow the pattern, whichever version they are doing. Not to mention, I also didn't want to share and make too many videos that give explicit instructions because I think that could cause a decrease in people actually purchasing the pattern, which is kind of the whole point. So, anywho, that's some background there. But next steps for me is the decreases. So in the pattern, I'm pretty sure the pattern calls for you to decrease basically on like 2 strips along the sides. And so it creates a really kind of pointy top. And I think you decrease every round. So again, really adds to that pointiness. Um, for me, I think what I'm going to do is mimic basically my instructions for the tall staple beanie, which is a pattern of mine. And it will just kind of have like 4 decrease areas and kind of follow like a regular kind of decrease result. And then when I block it, I'll block it flat. So it'll still kind of have like a pointy effect, and I'll add the tassel at the end. So making good progress. The make along technically ends, but again, the deadlines are kind of like suggestions. Um, Technically ends this Sunday, and again, it's Wednesday right now. And so my goal is to be working on this and finish this up by the end of this week. So last week I was really focused on just working on the ribbing because the bake along started last week. So my goal was to finish the ribbing last week, which I did. Really proud of myself. So now for the second week, my goal has been to just finish up the decreases and finish the hat. And I feel pretty optimistic about that. So very cool. I'm just so grateful for the people who have signed up and all of the support and community that's being built in the Discord. It's really incredible. And as part of the Discord too, there's a good place to share community resources and ways that people can take action beyond just making the hat, which I think is really important. So that's been really cool. Also, I'll say like obviously doing that make along was not planned. So it kind of pushed back some of my plans for designs, like working on the staple. I'm a little bit behind where I intended to be for the staple cardigan pattern design as a result of this. But again, I think it was really important to do, and I'm glad that I did it. So those are all of the whips and recent FOs. Let me know what you're working on in the comments below. I would love to hear. I also want to share, I do actually have a yarn acquisition, which is kind of rare because I'm in the middle of moving. And so I've been avoiding buying yarn. Um, but I did buy some yarn. So you might know, you might not know, but basically the Lang cloud yarn has been so popular that it sold out like everywhere and you could not get it anywhere for, I want to say like 6 months at least. So, and I think it was like started like last summer, where it just kind of blew up and sold out everywhere. And when it was kind of blowing up, I fell in love with this colorway online. I was looking at different pictures of people's, laying cloud yarn sweaters, looking it up on Ravelry, and just fell in love with this colorway, which is colorway 12. And again, couldn't find it anywhere. I was just imagining this in a nice, like, oversized sweater, and I couldn't get it anywhere. However, Violent Cat Lady, who I'll link her website down below, she sells awesome knitting kits, and also sells like yarn on its own. And I saw on her website that she had a pre-order for the Lane Cloud yarn. So I signed up, or not a pre-order, sorry. It was kind of like a wait list. So I signed up for the wait list and I got notified last week. I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, that it was in stock. Instantly went to her website, added 4 balls to my cart, and here we are with my 4 balls of Lang Cloud yarn in color 12. Isn't she beautiful? So I am so happy. I hope this is enough yarn to make a sweater. I went onto Ravelry, searched the yarn, and looked up sweaters, like filtered for sweaters. Found someone who looked like roughly my size, slash roughly like the sweater size that I wanted to make, and found that she had knit it with 4 balls of yarn. So I was like, all right, 4 is what it's going to be. Also, it's kind of expensive. So I did not want to buy 5. Don't have a lot of a budget. So hopefully 4 will be enough for what I have in mind. But I'm kind of imagining, so far I've done the staple sweater as a top-down raglan. And that's what the staple cardigan is too. I don't think I mentioned. And also the right side in sweater. But I am planning on eventually knitting a like basic drop sleeve, like drop shoulder pattern. And I'm thinking this might be the yarn for that. So stay tuned. I'm very excited. And highly just wanted to also plug Violent Cat Lady because she's a small business and she's awesome. So highly recommend you check her out. In terms of life updates, we have quite a few. So where to start? I'm currently in the process of planning my wedding. So my fiance proposed to me last August. We've been together 6 years now. Actually, February 1st was our anniversary for when we started dating. And so excited for planning our wedding. We set a date for September 17th of this year, which I know is quick. But we plan on doing a wedding like a little bit different than most, I guess, with doing a very small intimate ceremony. That's going to be on a Thursday, so September 17th. And it's going to be just super close family and a few friends. And it's going to be like 10 people, right? And it's going to be at this nice hotel near where we grew up. And it's just going to be lovely. And then that Saturday, we plan on having a large, like, family friends party, like everyone's invited. That we still have to finalize the venue, but we are going to do it. It's going to be very casual, kind of like a brunch thing, all that to say. So I've been working with my mom. She's being so sweet and helping me out with planning some of the stuff for the bridal shower and the reception slash party thing that I just mentioned, where I've been kind of doing more of the stuff for the ceremony. But it's just a lot of decisions to make. There are so many. And even though we're keeping it really casual and whatever, there's just still so much to do. And that's been kind of like on my plate to tackle, like little tasks here and there. But those little tasks have been pushed off because we're also in the process of selling our one bedroom condo and moving to I'm not sure if I want to say the town, but basically moving about an hour out into northern Virginia, Loudoun County, which is a really, really beautiful place. It's really on the edge of Loudoun County. And if you're familiar with the area at all, not expecting you to be. But basically, it's a very pretty area, rolling hills, very close to the Shenandoah mountain range. And it's the house that we are in the process of purchasing is a 1908 farmhouse that has only been in the same family since it's been built. And it's basically like it was a very old couple who was living there. The wife who passed away a couple years ago at 96. And actually, the town itself is extremely, extremely small. It's like we're kind of like in the downtown, but it's literally just like one road, and there's like a general store, and that's open until like 7 p.m. And then that's it. That's the town. There's a brewery down the road and different things, but it's very kind of rural, um, which I love. It's very peaceful. And I guess though that this town every year does a parade, and the year she passed, they actually dedicated the parade to her. And the husband continued living there for a little bit, I guess, but he's now in assisted living. And so they're selling the home for the first time. It's going to be outside of their family. And when you walk into this house, like the vibes are so immaculate. It is it's like walking in and getting a hug from your grandma. Like it's just so sweet. And it is in such amazing condition for how old the house is. It's like you walk into a museum or a church or something. Like I don't know how they kept it so like immaculate, but there's literally like a washer and dryer that's from the 90s that looks like it could be in a museum. Like it's in immaculate condition. There's not a single door that like sticks or squeaks. Everything just is so well taken care of. And we just had the home inspection done, and the home inspector was like, the foundation's amazing, yada yada yada. Everything's so good. It's not set in stone that we're going with this house yet because, and I'm saying that because in earlier this year, in December, actually, so yeah, I guess it was around December, we had an offer on another house that I was also in love with. It was beautiful. It was like basically on a hillside, so all the windows, which there were a lot of, you look out and all you would see was trees and mountains in the background, but mainly just trees. And it was so lovely. But we found out that there was an issue with the septic that would have been like a 50 to $80,000 project that we just did not want to. It was just going to be too much. So we decided to back out. So we still have the septic inspection to go and do for this house, but that's happening this week. Fingers crossed. Wish me luck. But we're in the process of starting to like pack up and stuff because our house the closing date for the selling is March 10th. We'll see basically what happens here. But it's kind of a little stressful. So a lot of the house stuff that's been moving on because it's a lot of appointments and it's a lot of admin that has been pushing back the wedding planning stuff. So I've been trying to balance both of those projects on top of like continuing to design knitwear while also working a full-time job. So I've been kind of losing my mind a little bit lately, but I'm feeling a bit better now. And actually, this is the reason why I wanted to re-record this for the third time. Because the first times I tried recording this, I was just in a much more overwhelmed and negative headspace, just feeling really tired and burnt out. But I was like, you know what? Today I want to approach this video a little differently, not be so strategic with it. And also, like, I'm just feeling more positive in general. And so I'm really glad that I re-recorded because I can already tell that I'm feeling much more optimistic about how this video went than the other two. I will say that when I finish recording well, the first time I tried recording, I only lasted like 15 minutes and I was like, I can't do this. I was like, this is not good. And then the second time, which I recorded on Monday, again, it's Wednesday, I was gonna go forward with it, but I literally at the end also had that gut instinct of being like, oh, I don't like this. At the end of the video, I was like, literally said, I was like, I hope you guys like it. Now I feel a little bit more secure in that I like this. I hope you like it too. And I hope you want to keep joining me each month as we chat on what's going on in our whips and our lives and all that jazz. So I think that's all I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed yapping with me about my knitting projects and my design processes. And I would love again to hear your diary entries in the comments below and what you are working on in the comments below. Be sure to say hi to other people in the New Wave Knitting Circle. If you want to continue to hang out, I would love for you to hop into the Discord. So, the New Wave Knitting Circle Discord server, I've got a link down below so you can join and sign up and make some friends. Introduce yourself in there. And as a little gift for being awesome, I'm going to share my free staple scrunchie knitting pattern in the description below as well. So you can get that free little scrunchie pattern. It's perfect for scrap busting. Um, and I hope you like it. So thank you so much for joining me here today. I can't wait to chat with you next month and see what's going on in your life and with your knitting. And we'll talk then. All right. Thanks so much. Happy knitting.